Go on then.
Welcome to the podcast, Nicky Grist.
Hi, Ollie. How are you doing? Everything all right?
Very well, thanks, Nicky. How are
Good,
you?
good, good. Yeah, not bad, not bad. Pleasure to be with you.
Thank you very much. Really looking forward to this conversation today, Nicky. We've known each other for a while now, on and off the golf course, and a big passion of ours is golf and motorsport. So we really
Yeah,
click and we get on well. So I'm looking forward to sharing some of the stories with the listeners today.
yeah. No, there's always plenty of stories along the way. There'll be a lot of stories I can't tell you, of course, but they'll
I'll
probably go
get
with
them
me
out
to the
of you. I
grave.
want to know those stories.
Yeah. All right. Okay. Well, I'm not going to share it in public, so sorry, everybody.
We'll see what I'll get out of you now. So, for those of you listeners who don't know Nicky, I'll give you a bit of a bio rundown. So, Nicky is known as one of the best co-drivers that's sort of been in the game in rallying. I've got 21 wins, Nicky. Is
Yeah,
that
that's right. That's right. Yeah.
The sort of famous drivers that the listeners may have heard of was Kankkunen and Colin McRae.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
And you won the World Championship with Kankkunen in 1993. Is that right?
That's correct. Yeah, yeah. That was some year. That was. Yeah.
Some
So
year.
yeah.
Tell us about that year then, Nicky.
Well, as it was, I started off the year with another driver. I turned professional in 1990, just to give people a bit of a background. And I kind of came up from driver to driver and team to team. And, I ended up at the end of 92 with nothing to do. And the team manager of Toyota at that time asked me to join German driver Armin Schwarz. So I was actually contracted to Mitsubishi at the start of 1993, albeit a very small program in the World Championship. I think we had 7 rallies together. That's all. But I did have some negotiations at the start of the year to join Juha, which all fell apart, and he stuck with his current co-driver, which was fine. And, it was all very amicable. So off I went rallying with Armin Schwarz, and we had some half reasonable results, and it was pretty good. And I was just lying in my bed one morning, and my manager rang me up and said, "Hey, Nick," he said, "how do you fancy, doing Argentina?" And I thought to myself, "Hang on, Mike, hasn't Argentina already started?" He said, "Well, yeah, they're in the reconnaissance now." I said, "All right, well, what's the story then?" And he said, "Well, listen, it's not good news. Juha Kankkunen's co-driver had a brain hemorrhage overnight in his room in a place called Villa Calas Paz in the middle of Argentina. And listen, Juha really wants you to go out and join him." I said, "Well, that's fine. I have no problem with that." I said, what about my contract?" He said, "Don't worry." He said, "I've already started the ball moving." He said, "I think you've just got to prepare and get your bags packed and get ready to go, because possibly it could be a dash at the airport." So I thought, my God, this is brilliant. I mean, Juha at that time was already a 3 times world champion, and here's me, a complete WRC non-rally winner. And it all started from Argentina, which was late May, I think it was. So anyway, come 11 o'clock, it was all done, all sorted. And I had to be up in Heathrow at 2 o'clock to catch a flight. And so I went and met the wife in work and met her in the car park and give her a kiss and a cuddle. And that was it, darling. Bye, I'm off now. And I was going to do 2 rallies. I was going to go Argentina and straight to New Zealand, you see. So I said, I'll be back in about something like 7 weeks' time. So this was like a dream come true, all of this, you could imagine. So, a 3-time world champion was the pinnacle, really. So I drove up to Heathrow, and I basically went to, got my plane ticket, and I flew from there to Paris, picked up my next ticket in Paris, which was Aerolíneas Argentinas to Buenos Aires. And I looked at the ticket, first class ticket even. Wow, I must have really made it. So I flew first class, and I tried to make the best of the Krug champagne and all the rest of it, but didn't dabble too much in that. But I arrived, early the next morning in Cordoba, where Juha was waiting for me. And, fortunately for Juha Pirinen, his co-driver, he had a serious brain hemorrhage, but one of the best brain surgeons in the world is based in Cordoba Hospital, which was something like 20 kilometers down the road from the hotel. So, Juha Pirinen did survive, although that was the end of his career. But it meant that, Juha and I sort of struck up a relationship straight away. And, off we went into the rally, and having rushed round the stages to do our pre-reconnaissance, flew up to a place called Tucumán in the north of Argentina, and where the start was in the first stage. And we won that first stage. We were fastest on there. So all of a sudden now, I'm leading my first ever World Championship rally. But from that point to the end of this rally, we never lost the lead. And all of a sudden, I'd won my first World Championship event in Argentina. I was, wow, I couldn't believe it.
Brilliant.
So, and off we went, really. We went to New Zealand, flew over the South Pole and did Rally of New Zealand, which was a tremendous experience. Never been there before. The next round was in Finland, but I wouldn't be released from my contract at that point by Mitsubishi. So I had to go back and do it with Armin Schwarz, the German driver. But then Juha had already started negotiation with the team, and he actually bought out my contract. And then I joined Juha full time. And we went on and had a string of really good results. Won Rally Australia, and then we came back to do Wales Rally GB, or Network QRAC it was called at the time. And it was bitterly cold, really icy and snow, and really, really tricky conditions. And, Juha, coming from Finland, as you can imagine, drove a brilliant rally. So to cap off the year, we won my home round of the World Championship as well. So, it was just like a whirlwind, you could imagine.
Absolutely. That must have been hell of an experience, sort of to, land on your feet there, I guess, really. I don't mean that being, well, you sort of become his co-driver by accident, if you like, or by, the poor chap's having his brain hemorrhage. But
yeah, sure.
How did that, you must have felt out of your depth at that time. How did you deal with the emotions of that?
Yeah, I know. I didn't feel I struggled at that point. I mean, I had confidence in my ability, and I was able to react to it. But I have to say that Juha made it very easy. And, he was such a laid-back character. He was obviously extremely experienced. And, if he was one of these nervous characters, it would probably have been a bit tougher for myself. But, he had such a lot of confidence in his ability. He'd won so many rallies. He'd won 3 championships already. He actually made it much easier for myself. And, to be honest, I didn't think twice about it. And, just to start that first stage and win God knows how many stages through Argentina, and then ended up winning it, our first event, I was settled in straight away. And that for me was really the start of, the serious years of my rallying career, really.
Brilliant. We'll definitely come back to the sort of the next phases of your career, but just want to go back a few years before the rallying started. I know you're a keen golfer, and for your sins, you're the captain of Rolls of Monmouth this year. Is that right? Next year,
2023. Yeah.
Brilliant. Good. Well, I hope you have a good year, and I'm looking forward to the rally stage Captain's Charity Day, hopefully.
Well, yeah, it's good. I think we're quite lucky at the Rolls because it's a big estate, but there's a fantastic stage right through the middle of it with a couple of forest sections and gravel finishing on the tarmac by the big house. And fair dues to Linda, the secretary of the event. She said, I'm sure that'll be fine. So, yeah, Captain's Charity Day will be a bit different with cars flashing across on a gravel track across the fairways. I don't think it'll be many Captain's Days quite like that. I don't think.
Are you going to let me drive your Celica?
No, that's a little too far. That is. I don't know whether I can entrust you with that. But I don't think I'll be using my Celica, actually. I have such an affinity with Toyota, winning my first rally and one and stuff. But my car, I probably will not be able to use that day because it's a pure tarmac car. So it's too low, and the tires are not suitable. So I'll probably just put it on display that day. And
fair enough.
Can
I drive around the car park?
Yeah, around the car park. I'll let you sit in the driver's seat at least. So.
Thank you. That's cool. So yeah, going back to being a keen golfer and throughout today's sort of session, we're gonna certainly see if we can see similarities between top athletes in rallying or golf and the similarities of the mental side, the preparation side. All that sort of, it's a 4-day competition, all that sort of stuff we're going to go into. But I just wanted to go back to your early years, because actually before rallying, you decided to be a PGA. Did you turn pro or you were going to?
No, I was just assistant pro. So I hadn't actually qualified at that point. But yeah, that was my first job, really. And I was only a young kid. I left school early. I didn't want to do any A levels, anything like that. I just left school and I just went straight into the golf. And at that time it wasn't very well paid. I think my first wage was £15 a week, I think, or something. But that was my first passion. But it was rallying that actually I went to watch a local event, just a thing called a road rally, which passed very close to the golf club. And it was after an engagement party, and we went to watch locally and then went to another place to watch it, and another place and another place. Ended up 5:30 in the morning at the Finish Hotel in A-on-Y. And I thought, my God, I never knew this was going on locally. I had no idea. And it was a real buzz. And, I kind of got into it from that. And my interest in rallying became far greater, to the point that working at the golf club on the weekends was getting in the way of it all. So I gave up that job at the golf club and just went into the motor trade and just spent my time doing that and competing in motorsport. But it was actually after many years of competing, it was actually joining Yuha, who's a keen golfer, that got us back playing again. So we started playing some golf around the world, wherever we could. And, that started my interest up again. And now I'm retired. Of course, golf's taken over again.
Brilliant. So you've gone from professional golfer to professional co-driving to back to being professional golfer.
Well, no, I think professional is probably it's probably too strong a word. I would say let's just put a keen amateur. Let's leave it at that. I think as you get older in life, it's difficult to be able to perform like a lot of these youngsters nowadays. I mean, when you see a lot of the kids, even the kids at the Rolls and Monmouth Golf Club, I think your physicality gets in the way of your swing a little bit. But my putting's come on fantastically since I joined you, and that's made a big difference to me. And I've lopped almost 2 shots off my handicap this year. So and I put a lot of that down to my putting. So thank you, Ollie.
I'll pay you later, Nicky. Don't you worry.
Well, it would be a shame that we didn't speak about it at least. But having competed at the top level of motorsport, Ollie, the pressures that are involved in rallying, it's more or less a life and death situation. It could potentially be,
Sure.
where when I was in the passenger seat and the driver was there, you're paid to go as fast as you can possibly go. And it's not like a racetrack. We don't have gravel traps and crash barriers or anything like that. When you're in the wilds of Argentina to the bush of out in the bush in Africa, where there's no bridges, there's not even any roads in most cases, it's just tracks made by vehicles once in a while, to the forests and the icy roads of Sweden and the treacherous roads of Monte Carlo. An accident is very real. It's a big possibility. But I never thought about it, because at the end of the day, I had confidence in my ability and confidence in the driver. And that thought process has helped me a lot in my golf. That the worst case scenario in golf is nowhere near as bad as it is in rallying, if you did have that accident. So what's the point in worrying about it? There isn't. Just, yeah. And I think when it came to the putting side of things, that putting, the aim point, picking your spot, picking your line, aim to that point, putting a nice stroke on it. Once you've got the confidence in that, I don't even think about the outcome. I don't think about it, because there's no point. At the end of the day, if you've got it right, it goes in. If it isn't, you're never going to be far away. And, you can look at the professionals in this game, and they've got a lot of confidence, but they don't sink everything. But I have to say that it's, using that rallying worst case scenario situation, playing golf should be enjoyable, not how can I say, you shouldn't worry about it anyway.
Life or death, yeah.
It's
a really interesting thing. I've never really sort of appreciated that with you, Nicky, that, your job was like on the edge, if you like, or life, or if you made a mistake, you could be off the edge of a cliff. And I didn't know you sort of thought about golf in that way, that, well, Christ, it can't be that bad. So that's really good. I think a lot of golfers do, think it's life and death, golf. What advice perhaps could you give them to deal with their emotions a bit better on the golf course?
I think to be honest, just think of the worst case scenario in life, really. And that just brings you back to reality, that golf is just a game. And the only person that gets in your way is yourself. And I have to say that, as long as you've done your work, done your effort, and you've practiced your stroke, that's as good as it can be, and you've chosen your line, just take that putt, take that swing and hit that shot, and just visualize where you want it to go, and don't worry about the consequences. And generally, everything will more or less end up in a reasonable position. It's only when you start to really panic and think, don't go there, don't do this, don't do that, does it generally happen. Sure. Because if I thought twice about co-driving in that fashion, I could have killed myself or the driver. Do you know what I mean? Because that information I'm feeding you of what's coming up ahead could most definitely have caused an accident. And I think that at the end of the day, I use that analogy, and I have to say it's served me reasonably well, to be honest.
100% on and off the golf course, isn't it? It's,
yeah, exactly.
You don't play off 3 handicap without having a very good mind, and you clearly have from that work. Do you think that a lot of the conference of saying, just trust it and hit it, comes from the preparation beforehand in the conference, and the hard work sort of happens before the rally or before the shot?
Yeah, I think so. I think it is. And really, when you think about it, putting the long game is always going to have a lot more complexity about it than putting is. But putting is really a very important part of your game, but it's actually the simplest. It's the easiest. You're hitting the ball. The stroke is so much shorter. The control is much, much easier. And the rest is just picking the right line, reading the slope, feeling the slope. And once I've got that aim point, bang, that's it. That's all I'm focused on. Right, I'm hitting it on that line, and I know exactly my stroke is in a good place. I just need to put a nice stroke on it and just keep your head still and bang. And my putting, honestly, it's a source of frustration to my mates that I play golf with now, because we have there's always a big head-to-head competition between us in a weekly club competitions. But I've taken a fortune off him this year in just playing for a couple of quid on the card. But my putting and short games saved me so many times this year, and a little bit more effort next year, and I'm sure it's going to get even better still. But really, nothing can be simpler, nothing can be easier in golf than just not worrying about it, picking your line and hit it with confidence. Bang, that's it.
Happy days. Happy
It's
days.
simple
Stuff. Stuff. Nick, just going back to the preparation for a rally with, Cancan or Colin McRae. We have touched on this before, and I've been absolutely amazed by how many staff or how many employees there were on each rally at different places doing different things. Talk us through what a preparation for a rally might look like, and how would that link to perhaps a practice round for a pro or just an amateur golfer going to a round?
I think with a rally, with a professional player, even a top flight pro wouldn't play in every tournament. If there's 48 rounds of the PGA Tour, for instance, a top player probably wouldn't want to play in any more than 15, maybe 18 events, taking all the majors into account as well, because there's a lot of work and effort that they have to put into it. With us in rallying anyway, a lot of our event is preparation for that particular rally. The surface that we're on, and every surface is different from country to country. It may be gravel, but the gravel is different in Australia to what we find in Cyprus Rally, to what we find in Finland, to what we find at the forests here in the UK. It all has its speciality, and we have to find the optimum setup in differentials, how they work and how they operate and how they grip, to the tire and the tire compounds, and how we cut the tire to allow the tread to get down through the mud and slippery surface on the top to get to the hard base below. Getting the suspension right so it's soft enough to get grip, but hard enough that we can get some stability in the car, which is really important on high speed stuff. So a test for us could be 2-3 weeks before the event, of which it could be 2 or 3 days, of which then we then find the right car setup, and everything is timed. So we're timing exactly what we're doing on that particular piece and section of road. So we know if we make a change and it's quicker, we can see the differential in the time. And then it'll be the same with tires. We're finding the optimum tire. But then once we found a good tire, then we have to then look at what the longest stage of the rally is. And then we do an endurance run on that tire to see how it performs over a given distance. And, that then is then built into our rally car, of which we then would arrive, like if we go back probably to Juha's days, our reconnaissance was like 2 weeks. and that sort of slimmed down over time. But we go over the stages 2, 3, 4 times, and then we're making detailed pace notes of the route. So the driver's got his system that he would use to describe every corner, the severity of the corner, the braking points, the length of the straights. And then you'd fine tune those after every pass. And then come the rally, once we finish our reconnaissance, which generally would have been in a kind of a modified road car with protection underneath, of course. And then we'd see our rally car. We do the shakedown, which is just a chance for us to shake down the car, which is built brand new for that event. So we just make sure that no nuts and bolts are going to fall off the thing, and make sure the settings are correct. And then that's us done. We're then into the rally itself, and off we go.
Love it. Love it.
And you know, an event, we'd probably have up to 100 people. And, you know, in the earlier days, 100 people on an event, masses of vehicles, helicopters with mechanics flying around, 2 motorhomes, 15 service vans, 6 tire trucks, 4 mechanics cars, 2 chase cars, you know, and all that for effectively running 2 to 3 cars. I mean, it was a big operation.
It's a big old operation, isn't it?
Mm.
When you sort of talk about the shakedown, you know, the night before, did you ever feel sort of nervous before a rally?
No, not really. No, I can't say I did. I mean, I just took it in my stride, really. You know, I think it would be more nervous excitement more than nervous.
Yeah.
I think it was really looking forward to it and getting things, you know, up and running and get out there and do your stuff. I think if you were nervous, you wouldn't do it. You wouldn't be able to do it, not to the level of performance that we had to achieve. You just had to relax and just enjoy what you were doing, and everything would just flow beautifully, you know. And you know, co-driving in a rally car, there's lots of different jobs that it entails. Very strict timetable we have to follow. So we have time cards and timing procedures with controls at certain points, which we have to check in on time. But then from the driver's point of view, the big thing was the reading of pace notes. And how somebody would read those pace notes is also quite important. So somebody that's nervous, scared, bit high-pitched, and from a driver's point of view, he's listening to that, and it's coming over like, my God, this guy, he's a bit hyper, you know. God, am I driving too quickly? Am I driving badly? Have I got him on edge? You know, and then your performance in the passenger seat could affecting what the driver was doing from his point of view. So I think just a cool, calm, sort of nice intonation where you needed it. If it was something bad coming up, you throw in a care caution, whatever it may be, got it. And then it's all just cool and calm. And that's the way a good relationship works. And it certainly helped me through my career anyway.
That cool and calmness that you had going into the event, you know, on the start line, is that something you learned over time, or you trained, or do you think that's like, I don't know, your personality and it's just the way you are?
I think I improved the more I did effectively. I always felt confident in what I was doing. And I think that electronics that we have, the intercom systems in the car and in the helmets, became better and better over time. And that helped with that cool and calm kind of delivery, because you could hear yourself a lot better. And but I definitely did improve as time went on.
How did you improve, Nicky?
I think it was just understanding a lot more, realizing the effect of how I co-drove, how I said things would have an effect on the driver. And, they were very conscious of, what you were doing in the passenger seat. They could see you sat there. They could see you holding your pace notebook. They could see you, if you were dancing on the foot plate a little bit, as a bit nervous, they could see all of that. So it's just a case of just be calm, just be cool. And that's the way I went through it. And, when you've got that sort of delivery of bass notes, then the driver thinks, yep, I must be doing well. I'm in control. I'm driving really well. Yep, this is going well. And I felt that it had an impact at the end of the day to what the driver did.
Interesting. Did you ever change the tone of your voice in a car? Do you recall anything ever going, oh God, saying something you shouldn't have, maybe?
Well, yeah. I mean, if you're having an off or something, then you've got to go completely off script but generally it was always the driver, because the driver knew before me as the co-driver, because you are basically focused with your head down a lot of the time, concentrating on that page and feeling where you are on the road through the seat of your pants. So at the end of the day, if something goes wrong, the driver knows first. And he'd throw out, oh, shit. Or if it's a real bad one, it would be, oh, fuck. And then you just got to hold on, because it's out of your control. There's just nothing you can do. Both of us were just passengers at that point. But, you'd be surprised that in those given situations, if something out of the ordinary would happen, these drivers have got so much ability, and probably 99 times out of 100, they'd be able to manage the situation, control it as best they could, and at least the off wouldn't be as bad as it could be.
Sure.
I think a lot of people, when you look at accidents on the road, generally a lot of people's accidents happen because they overcompensate for a situation.
Sure.
Where these guys would just give it that little bit, just a little bit of opposite lock, instead of people, if they have a big slide on in a road car, they give it too much lock. And of course, it's overcompensating for the little slide they've got. And then next minute, it's flipping back the other way. And then you've heard of a tank slapper, haven't you, Ollie? You've probably had one or two of those, I expect.
I should imagine so, yeah.
And, when I see that, and you see people off, it's only because they overcompensate. But these drivers are really special. And I was very fortunate to see the capability of a top-class rally car with the best tires, with the best engine transmission, with the best drivers on some of the best roads in the world. And it really was a pleasure to behold.
Superb. Yeah, superb. Just one more on that, sort of dealing with pressure and staying calm. Did you, with your time with those guys, ever have I don't know, life coaches, mental coaches, psychologists working in the team, or did you ever, I don't know, seek help, or was it that you or Colin, was there help out there?
There was help if you wanted it, but we never needed it with Colin or with you. I mean, we were confident in our own ability, and it was absolutely fine. I think if you're the right way out, is that the right terminology? Yeah, I think the right way out. I don't think there's really any need for a psychologist. When I look at top flight golf now, and when I look at the pros that are out there, it's always the same ones that are there at the front. The difference between those and the guys that are struggling to make the cut are very, very similar in their abilities. It's just the guys at the top just have that extra bit of confidence that just puts them on a different stratosphere. And then that difference means such a lot to your overall score. And when I think of myself co-driving with a top flight driver, you're on the last stage and you're 1 second in the lead, and you know that you've got to push it to the limit to actually come out of that stage and win the rally. Did it affect what I did? It made no difference to me whatsoever. Did I think about it? No, I didn't even think about it. For me, it was just a case of just do what I needed to do, and it happened. And I think in golf particularly, I think there's a lot of youngsters out there that probably lack that confidence in their own ability. And those guys, I can understand, need that extra bit of help.
Sure.
And because I think the problem is you've got too much time to think about it on a golf course, haven't you? You know, when you play in the 18th hole, you've already finished the 17th putting out, you know, and then you've got a lead, and then somebody else is teeing off in front of you, and, you know, it's the last hole and this is it. I've got to get a par to win, you know, and there's water down the left and out of bounds on the right, and you're watching these two guys in front of you hitting left and hitting right, and, you know, you're stood on the tee waiting to go, and all of this emotion and everything is all building up inside of you. But for us, you know, I'd never even thought about it, even though we're driving up to the last stage of the rally. Even on the start line, once we'd got the helmets on and we'd gone through the time control and we're waiting for the car in front to start, and then it's us next. Never thought about a thing. I just relaxed in my own ability, and it just helped me dramatically.
Interesting. I find that absolutely fascinating and like hard to believe. And I don't mean that I don't believe you. Just it's incredible that you have that, you know, that calmness, because you talk about walking from the 17th to the 18th. That for me is like going from stage to stage when you've got 10 minutes to think about, oh shit, we are in this position. We need to hold on to this 1 second lead. Do you know what I mean? I see them to be very similar. What do you think the like top athletes, you know, the two we're talking about there, you know, Cancan and McRae, what makes them different to all the other thousands of rally drivers?
I think in Juha and in Colin, they were two naturally talented drivers.
Yeah.
Other guys on their day were equally as fast, but they had to work hard to be fast. These guys inside the car made everything feel like slow motion. You know, nothing was a panic. Everything was controlled. You know, the car would be set up in for the corner. It would come in with a big slide, but it's all controlled. And that natural ability does make a difference. You know, when you have to work hard to be good at something, that's where it becomes difficult. And in golf particularly, especially nowadays when there are so many good professionals, so many good guys that are not even going to make it from the Challenge Tour to get even to the DP World Tour, let alone to go to the PGA in America. And I think, you know, there's so much at stake for these guys. You know, they are in a position where they have to make the cut to get some money. If they don't get the cut, they don't get anything, but they're already out of pocket. At least for us in professional motorsport, the manufacturers paid our wages. It didn't matter where we finished in the rally, first, third, 10th, or we didn't finish the rally at all. It made no difference to us. And I think that has an element of calmness about it, because we weren't affected financially quite so much. But I think anybody that's seriously talented, I think if you're going to get into the sport, you must put everything to the back of your mind and just enjoy the moment. And I think that's so important. That's really so important, you know. But I do feel sorry for these guys that really are exceptionally talented and they can't let themselves go. Is that the right word?
That must be in rallying as well, though, Nicky. There must be a lot of, you talk about being at the top of the game, so if you crash, it doesn't matter. But if you crashed, you know, if you didn't finish a rally, you wouldn't have a job next year, would you?
There is a bit of that, you know. Unfortunately, the nature of the sport, the nature of the roads that we competed on, you know, these things happened. You know, it was a part of being quick and being fast. I think if you continually crashed and kept crashing, you know, and didn't turn in any results, then you'll be under serious pressure. And contractually, you know, they could get rid of you. But, you know, if you were paid a reasonable amount of money to perform, and you did perform and win some rallies along the way, and got a good string of good results, then the team are always happy. And you know, while, you know, we can make mistakes, so can the team, because we are just one link in a long chain of people within that team who all have an influence on the result. Because if the car breaks down, you know, that's equally as big a failure as us crashing out on a stage trying to go faster. So, you know, it's a tough world. It's a tough world.
Tough world.
And, you know, and you know, I've had some seasons where it's just not gone well at all. And you know, we started with Ford Motor Company in 1999, and it was, the Focus at that time was a brand new road car, hadn't long been launched, and they wanted us to use this car, and the pre-build up to Monte Carlo Rally was not going very well at all. The car had hardly run. Our testing was disastrous. The suspension was too hard, it wouldn't handle. We'd have oil leaks on the power steering, and then a fire, and you know, we were out before Christmas, then back home for Christmas, going back out between Christmas and New Year doing some more, and then something else happened, then going back for New Year, and then going back and doing more testing. And you know, it took a lot of effort to get the car into a position where it started to work. But that particular year, 1999, we retired 10 times, I think.
Wow.
And extremely frustrating, you know, having done all that testing, done all the reconnaissance and everything else, then to retire 10 times, it was horrendous. And I always remember going to China, Rally of China. It was a new event, started in Beijing. And the first stage was only a short one, 6 kilometers. About 3 kilometers into the first stage, there was a right-hand corner which went over this rounded, flat but rounded boulder into a hairpin left corner. We just took the line that a couple of cars in front of us had taken. We went over this rounded boulder, which was nothing, and bang, something broke in the front suspension, and we just pulled straight on at a hairpin and retired on the spot. This was on stage one. About 4 cars later, our teammate in the same car takes exactly the same line as that we took, and exactly the same line as the cars took after we'd passed. Bang, exactly the same thing happened again. The front suspension broke, he pulled on and parked by the side of us. So we'd gone all the way to China, they'd flown these rally cars there. There was all the guys sat in the service park, and we hadn't even completed one stage. And that was it, guys, let's go home. And all it was a badly machined bolt in the suspension that was done incorrectly, and it just fractured and broke. And it just shows that how important everything the engineer does, everything that machine shops do, everything that the mechanics do is equally as important. But you could imagine going all that way, doing all that work, and retiring after 3 kilometers. God, it was frustrating.
Must be really hard. And it's coming on to my next question, really, which is talking about how you deal with sort of failure or like not finishing a rally. So one of the sort of memorable moments of the rallies was in 2000, when I think you had a lead going into the last stage. Was it against Richard Burns and you crashed out?
Oh yeah, we were leading the championship. 2001 it was, and
2001.
yeah, we were leading the world championship quite comfortably, and all we basically had to do was just probably finish in front of Richard Burns, and probably we didn't even have to do that. We could have finished one place behind him and still won the championship. And yeah, in the end, Colin pushed too hard, and after some foggy piece of road where, historically Richard's pace notes described the road far more accurately, with Colin's pace notes were very much based on the feel of what he could see. And when he couldn't see, then the pace notes kind of not lost their way, but they didn't give him as much speed as Richard Burns' notes did. And we came out of this foggy section, and then his pace started to pick up a little bit. And then, a kilometre further on, it was complete carnage. The car was completely destroyed. We had a massive clipped a bank on the inside, and it corkscrewed us upside down, and we had this massive accident, rolling and rolling and rolling down the road. And for us, that was the end of it. There's no way we're going to go any further. And then we just had to sit back and see what happened with Richard Burns. And from that point on, all he really had to do was finish in the top few places, which he did do, and he made sure he got to the end, and he did enough to win the world championship. And that was probably the last throw of the dice for Colin and I, which at that time we didn't know, but we never had an opportunity to win a world championship again. But, did it make a difference? I would say probably, yeah, it was upsetting at the time, but it wasn't, it wasn't the end of my world, put it that way. At the end of the day, we'd done a great job to that point, and I felt I'd done a great job to that point, and Colin just pushed a little bit too hard. And of course, the disappointment was not just for us. For me, it was a bigger disappointment for Colin, but also the team, who put so much effort in throughout the year, for it all to be thrown away at that point. That was quite tough.
How did you sort of deal with that?
I was okay about it. I was upset for a little while, but it wasn't that long. What did you do? Just went home, had a bottle of wine, and because we were only in Cardiff, so it was quite close to home. Yeah. So I just went home and had a bottle of wine. I thought, right, I wanted to get out of Cardiff. I didn't want to be amongst everybody, so I just got out of the way and just followed it on the internet, and basically just waited to see what had happened. And it was, after a couple of days, it looked quite obvious what was going to happen, that Richard Burns, a fellow Brit, was going to win it. And if we weren't going to win it, then, I was glad that he was going to win it, and at the end of the day, we just started thinking about the new year. And before we knew it, we were off to testing for Monte Carlo and Swedish Rally, the first 2 rounds of the year, in sort of late November, early December, and the process just starts all over again. And you just put it behind you, Ollie, really.
No dwelling on it, and just get on with it.
There's no point. It's not going to bring it back. Just focus on the future, really. And I think at the end of the day, golf is a very similar thing. We're very quick to think about the bad shots when we need to hit a good shot, and you'll forget all your good shots you've hit, but you'll always remember the bad ones in those clutch situations. And I think, I've kind of learned from that, from my rallying a little bit. And I always think about the great shots that I've hit here, there, and everywhere. But sometimes the old sort of negative energy start to get at you sometimes. But I do enjoy the challenge of golf in a completely different way. But it's not life or death. That's the thing.
Not life or death. No, that's good. So in 2002, you split up with McRae, and there was
Yeah,
a few disagreements according to Wikipedia.
yeah,
What was
yeah.
the disagreements?
Um, I don't know. I think at the end of the day, Colin was a very winning was important to him, and I think it's a bit like a driver co-driver relationship is very much like a caddy and the golfer scenario.
Sure.
That the golfer will always get rid of the caddy to try and bring him something else that his previous caddy couldn't bring. And I think this happens a lot as well in rallying a little bit. When things don't go so well, the driver just wants to have somebody new, somebody fresh. In this case, at the end of 2002, we'd had an off on a corner in um, New Zealand, which at the end of the day, that was probably the icing on the cake for Colin. I mean, it was his fault why we went off. It wasn't my fault. And
Did he think it was his fault?
yeah, I think so. Yeah, yeah. I mean, there was no
You
there
think
was no
so?
doubt it. The onboard footage showed that. You know, so it wasn't a case of the co-driver not saying anything, and you read the corner, and that was it. But I think he'd spoken to his dad, and they'd been concocted a plan, and they brought back his old co-driver again that I took over from what 6, 7 years earlier. So at the end of the day, he came back and he only had a season, and that didn't go as well as I would have hoped anyway. And at the end of the day, it gave me some free time to do other things, and I got involved in some television work and did some punditry for American television for the World Championship, as well as working for the actual promoter as well. And I enjoyed that time off. But we did have the opportunity to get back together again. There was some opportunities. Colin only had one more year as a full-time driver. And in 2005, we were able to come back and drive for Skoda, who had been sort of serious competitors, but never had a driver that could help them develop the car and bring the car on and drive it to its full potential. And we came back and did a bit of hard work. We went to Rally GB and we had a reasonable result there. But then we went to Australia and we were on the verge of the best result that Skoda had ever had. We were going to finish second on this rally. And unfortunately, the management, I think it was probably a management issue that the engineer, we didn't have the proper engineer. We were the leading car. Their full-time driver was nowhere in the standings. We were way ahead of him, but they gave us the understudy engineer, not the main engineer. And he made a mistake by not changing a clutch because the data said the clutch was good. But the other driver, they did clutch change no matter what because they knew they'd have to do it. The engineer didn't change it. We did the first 2 stages of the last day, and all of a sudden the data said, "Oh shit, this is not going to work. The clutch could wear out in the next 2 stages." And again, the management didn't step in. Instead of bringing the really good mechanics that were on the more experienced mechanics, let's say, on the other car, to bring it in to change the clutch, they let these inexperienced guys do it. And it was all a bit of a panic because it was a pressured situation. They only had 20 minutes to change it, where if they'd done it the night before, it would have been 45 minutes and it would have taken the pressure off. And in the end, we retired in the service park. And that was it. The whole service park had emptied. All these other rally cars had gone and left. But then all the teams were stood in the walkway behind our service bay. And when these mechanics had finally done the job, after some issues. They started the car, put it in first, drove it a little distance, switched it off, and the mechanics just run into the back of the workshop and was so upset. And I'd never seen so many grown men cry as that day. They were gutted that all of a sudden the best result the team have ever had gone. The problem started the night before, but that was very frustrating. That was frustrating. I felt sorry for them. It wasn't the end of our world. We'd won that rally a few times before. But for these guys, when it meant such a lot to be thrust into that position, bloody tough.
Difficult. And, you sort of brush off there that Colin McRae, let's be honest, like one of the best, if not the best, rally driver all time, sacked you. How did you deal with that? Obviously, you kept busy with TV and stuff like that. But you're telling me, like, emotionally, that didn't mess you up a little bit, Nicky?
No, it wasn't too bad.
Surely it's like a big dagger in the, like a big,
It was initially.
Must have hurt.
Yeah, a little bit, they didn't handle it very well either. I think they could have handled it a lot better if they'd spoken to me about it, and we could have at least had a proper discussion about it. But at that point, I'd already had 13 years at the top end of the sport as a professional. My career was already a lot longer than so many other people that have come and gone before me with other drivers. And I'd won like 21 rallies, and I'd done over 150 rallies, of which over 100 were podiums. Do you know what I mean? I had all the stats there.
Sure.
And it was fine. I think if it had happened within a 12 months of me joining him, then I would have been upset, because you probably wouldn't have co-drove for anybody else ever again.
Yeah.
But as it was, I'd had a lot of experience up to that point. And, I'd had a great time in the sport. I'd been sort of at the top end for, 10 years, having the best of everything, best hotels, best travel. And I was quite happy in that, to be honest. And it didn't really affect me too badly.
Amazing career. Just to finish off with, Nicky, can you obviously it was very sad in 2007, I think it was, when the helicopter crash happened and Colin passed with his son. You've told me a story of Colin golf courses, beers and buggies. Can you share that story with us? I think it's a nice way to finish.
Yeah, well, Colin was not a golfer, and it was a rally with Skoda. We did Wales Rally GB, starting from Cardiff, finishing in Cardiff. We did it with Skoda, and we finished the event. But then after the event, I was having the Nicky Grist Golf Classic, which was effectively a charity golf day, where Colin came along, and we had a big dinner in the evening, and we had a comedian as well with us, and he was going to have a game of golf. I said, "You sure?" He said, "Well, it can't be that difficult, can it?" I said, "Colin, this is not an easy game." So anyway, a friend of mine who was a PGA pro at that time said, "Oh, I'll play with him," because he knew Colin reasonably well. So the only way he could hit a ball was by doing it like Happy Gilmore, where he could run and hit the ball, but he'd managed to hit it some shape, but it wasn't always consistent. But what he did really enjoy was the golf buggy. So, okay, it was Cottrell Park was the golf club, and I do apologize to Cottrell Park now, and I know it did cost us a few £1,000 for damage and stuff to this buggy, but this buggy had been put through hell and back. He'd lifted the seat, and he'd found out that there was a governor on the engine. So he worked out how to release this governor by using a T-peg in here and this elastic band, and pull it there. We could take the governor off. but they were taking this thing, they were launching it over bunkers, jumping over bunkers, no messing around on the greens. But if there was some nonsense there, they were into it. We had this professional photographer who came from motorsport. Well, they terrorized this photographer. He was in his own buggy and he was there flicking through all the photos that he had. Next minute, this buggy appears over the top of the hill, T-bones this guy right in the side, flips it up sort of halfway over. But that was Colin for you, you know. I mean, he while he was a very serious competitive driver, he was also a bit of a social time bomb. And you know, there was good and there was bad in our relationships, but there was a lot of fun as well. And this particular day, he loved it and he had such fun. And you know, we had a big party the night before as well, the night after, sorry, in Cardiff. And yeah, it was one hell of a golf day, I can tell you. My God, we drank some beer and 300 quid's worth of sandwiches delivered to the room after because we were all starving. It went from one extreme to another, but it was good fun.
Brilliant. That sounds like a golf day I'd like to be involved with. But
yeah.
Nicky, I really appreciate your time. Really wonderful to talk to you. I hope the listeners enjoyed it as much as I did. And it's been great to sort of, hear through your career and relate some of that to golf. And now you've got your motorsport business, which is selling a lot of nice products for sort of fellow rally drivers and racers.
As we can see over your shoulder there.
Yeah, I've got my stylo helmet here. And one thing I just want to finish with is, on Wikipedia, it says that you've got a motorsport business and you sell stylo helmets. You're the UK distributor and you've sold helmets to the likes of Peter Solberg, Ken Block and Sebastian Loeb. So I was wondering if you could ring them up and get me added to that list.
Well, listen, it's only Wikipedia. You need to add your name to it. You don't need
I can add it myself, can I?
Yes, yeah. Please do, Ollie.
Okay, I'll add my name to it right now.
That'll bring in so much trade for me. That'll be unreal.
Absolutely. Nicky, once again, thank you very much for your time.
Thanks, mate.